Okay, next we would move on to the client factors section of the case study. So the first one we're going to start with is her values. So she states in the case study that she values being independent, and it did state that she has been independent prior to the accident, and she was independent in all her ADLs and activities, and so therefore it is important that we do address this. She states that she does not want to depend on anyone beside her husband. Next, we're going to move on to specific mental functions. So when her evaluation was being performed, in terms of her memory, it did state that she was somewhat forgetful during her evaluation. And also, she did show the emotion of fear. Therefore, when she was trying to shower, it did state that she was too fearful. And so that is something that we would like to address with Yolanda so she can get back to her meaningful occupations. The next client factor is sensory functions. So there was no perceptual, visual, or hearing deficits seen with her. Her sensation was intact, although she did have occasional tingling in her left hand. And she did exhibit pain with left shoulder movement beyond specific range of motions, inflection, and extension, which we will talk about next. So in terms of her neuromuscular, skeletal, and movement-related functions, with her right upper extremity, it was seen that there was no deficits in her range of motion and coordination. Her left extremity, which is her affected extremity, did show impaired coordination, and this was because of immobilization. And in her range of motion in her left upper extremity, her movements included shoulder flexion, which was up to 25 degrees, shoulder extension to 10 degrees, and it did state in the case study that beyond these movements she did have pain, so it is important to keep that in mind when performing interventions with her. For her elbow range of motion, it was from 0 to 110 degrees, and for wrist and fingers, she was within normal limits. For her muscle functions, specifically muscle power, which is strength, her left upper extremity could not be assessed due to the non-weight bearing precautions that was given by her physician. And the doctor did give specific exercises that she could do to help get that range of motion and that strength back in her left upper extremity, and to reduce the stiffness that would be seen if she did not perform these exercises. So her doctor's orders include pendulum exercises, active assistive exercises, and active exercises as tolerated. Now we're going to move on to some intervention activities that could be performed with Yolanda. So because she is a mother and a wife, it is important to help her return back to those meaningful occupations, and so that she can return to her previous roles before the accident happened. So first and foremost, we're going to start with ADLs. And so dressing could be addressed with her. Some items that could help her improve her performance is using fasteners, which was stated indirectly in the case study. And I also recommended a dressing stick because she does not have that full shoulder range of motion. We did not want to push her beyond that limit because she does have pain. Therefore, this can help her with donning her clothes such as shirts, pants, and things like that. Next, we're going to move on to the showering ADL. So as stated before, she did exhibit fear when performing this occupation. So first and foremost, it would be important to once again empathize with her and reassure her that you're going to be present every step of the way, and you're only going to be a couple feet away if she is in fact comfortable with that. And some assistive devices that would help her performance in showering would include handheld shower head, a long-handled bag scrubber, and a long-handled sponge. Once again, these are could help because of her limited range of motion and her strength. And then the last, stretching, showering, and then the last activity that we could perform is meal prep. So she did state in the case study how she is dependent on meal prepping activities. So once again, we like to state that she is a mother and a wife, and therefore this could potentially be a very important activity. It also did state that they would go out to eat, which could cause a financial burden as well. And so it is important that we address meal prepping with her so she can get back to returning to her roles as a mother and a wife and cook for her kids and her husband. And so one way we could address this intervention is to grade up with improvement. So you could start with simple foods such as making a sandwich or something that does not involve using a stove or too much motion or strength or too much endurance. And then as the fracture heals and she improves, then you could grade it up to more complex foods, such as foods that you would use a stove for, or something that requires more motion and more strength and more endurance. So therefore, it is important that we base our intervention activities on her current roles as a mother and a wife, and that we address those meaningful occupations that are important to her.